Yay!
Hello. Welcome in,
Hey!
everybody.
Woohoo. Yay, it worked.
Aha! Can everybody hear everyone okay? This is the first time I've hosted from my computer, so I hope to God everything's okay. But I think we'll be okay. All right.
I can hear you.
We're going to talk roleplay today. I'm very excited. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited.
I'm super excited.
It's gonna be great.
Super
So,
excited.
if you have any questions throughout today's stream, just let us know. Throw it in the chat. We will answer any and all questions. Everybody's good. Heck yeah, let's go. All right. So I want to start off with just asking how. I feel like that's the general question that we're gonna get. How? And everybody is gonna answer in a different way, I feel like. So, thank you for the biddies.
Yay!
I feel like everybody's probably gonna answer differently, but I'm curious to know everyone's answers. So, like, how do you personally, like, you have a character in mind, you're going through, you build them, it's completed, and you're going, what do they sound like? What do they do? You know, how do you go about getting that character to come to life?
Well, the way I look at it is think of it like an actor, okay? Not in the sense of what an actor would do with voices, but what an actor does with costumes. And each voice I do, each persona, each thing that I do is from a massive pool, a massive chest of costumes that I have set aside. It's from going out in public and looking at people and seeing that is quite the character. I'm gonna play someone like that someday. You know, it's like there's this. There was a guy that I was working with that he's always very gruff and oh my god, why'd you just get away from me, man? And doing this stuff and so forth. He's very gruff. He says a lot of horrible things all the time. And then he also says some really stupid things. I don't know how many of you know, but I'm a conductor on the railroad, so we can actually get in trouble for going too fast and things like this. And they said, "Do you have any idea how fast you were going?" He went, "How am I supposed to know? I don't have a thermometer." You know, things like this.
A thermometer?
Yeah, yeah.
How fast you were cooking.
But I take from movies and books, and I mean, granted, yes, everybody sees the character differently when they read a book, but I take from these vast assortment of characters I've seen throughout all my years, and I just piece them together, and I just make something that I figure would fit for that character. And I look at it as two separate things entirely. When I'm making a character, I'm making something I would think would be cool. I just want to see this combination, and then I look at their persona completely different, and then I just kind of jam it in there somehow.
That's really interesting because I almost do it like the opposite. So I make a character and their history and their background and everything, and then I think about how that would inform the way that they speak and the way that they interact with other people and the way that they kind of move about the world. So I think of like, so the character that I made for D for your one shot, Brina, who was a gnome ranger who had lived in the same community of gnomes her entire life and was going out to like find help for the community. So she had never met any other races, really. She had never interacted with a lot of other people, so she didn't really have a lot of like social like awareness, and she had some anxiety related to that, but she also didn't like know when to stop talking. So that's kind of why I made those choices about her.
Yeah.
And then in my head I was thinking about other people, like Billy, you were saying characters from TV, from movies and stuff, about other people who maybe didn't have the same like social graces kind of in that way. And in my head, the first person I thought of was Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter. So I kind of wanted her to have that kind of higher pitched, breathy quality to her voice.
Nice.
And so that's
Okay.
kind of why, like, that's kind of how I made her character and the way that she reacted to the world and the way that she kind of, in my head, kind of how it worked out. And sometimes I think having those ideas, it doesn't always work out. Like for the current campaign, for example, like in my head, Kira didn't doesn't talk, doesn't share information. She's like sits. But we had so many characters who didn't do that. It's like who like had that like I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to talk to other people. So
Right.
I'm like somebody's got to do talking. Like it can't just be Bill. so um, so
Yeah.
that's kind of why I kind of changed the approach from a role playing standpoint with Kira, and I'm like, okay, she'll talk, but she won't ever say anything of substance, and so that's kind of the way that I approach that. And I do the same thing with like characters, especially from movies and TV and stuff like that, because I feel like that's an easy way to kind of get an idea of what a person could be like or how their background could inform what they're like. Because I do think that for me, that's part of creating a character is like creating their history and background, and then how does that affect how they interact with others? Because that's so much of what role playing is interacting with other people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mixture of both. So I'll create my character at first and then I'll look at them, and as I build them, I have like a general idea of what I want them to be, not necessarily who. So like their background story of they were orphaned or they were whatever, kind of like actually molding the person as a whole. And then I go from there on, okay, well, if they've lived outside their entire lives, they probably have a little bit more of like a gruffy voice, or are a little bit more untamed in the way that they talk or the way that they act or portray themselves because they're used to being in the woods or something along those lines. So, and then I start adding in like the history of like my character, where they come from, and who they are, um as far as like just like the little things of what I want them to sound like and everything. Welcome in, guys. We got some new people. But yeah, so
Yay! Hello,
that's the
hello.
general. Also, I'm sorry that the the text on the screen is being really weird and not showing up. I can't fix it. I don't know why it's doing that. It was fine earlier.
Oh, like the chat text?
Yeah, the chat text is not showing up. It's like super opaque. Not entirely sure.
It's there, but I
Um
think it's just I think it's the color.
Well, I just
Yeah.
changed it to black and it didn't. So,
Oh.
I'm not entirely sure. I'll try to
It
fix it.
must be maybe a transparency issue.
Maybe. It probably is, honestly.
You need
Let's
to
see
be
if I can.
transparent.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so we have a question in the chat. How hard is it for you to separate
Hey.
this is what I would do in this situation versus this is what my character would do? That's a really good question.
It really is and difficult.
For
I find it
me,
difficult.
Yeah, and it's so incredibly difficult because more often than not, no matter what you do, you always take a piece of yourself and you put it into your character.
yes.
So then it becomes a problem of, all right, so what, given that situation, I almost have to completely remove myself. It's almost like, going into like a Zen moment and just completely removing your consciousness and putting yourself into your character in that situation and thinking about what you
Let's hope
would
this
do.
works.
And even though at that point it's you, if you can't think instantly, well, my character would do this because this is their traits, this is their bonds, this is
There we
the
go.
things they think of, and this is how they always have done things, so this is what they would continue to do.
Right.
If it's something new, you literally have to do what would you do in that situation, given the fact that all I can picture right now, I'm literally working on a character for one of Mother Nerling's campaigns. I'm going to be a Minotaur paladin. And so
Oh,
everything right now of course, I'm thinking of that character. So everything in my head is on that character right now.
right.
And I'm just seriously thinking, like, right now, okay, I'm a cow. I'm in armor. I wield a big axe, and I'm all about, dishing justice. And justice needs to be, through my axe. That's how I make things happen. And given in any situation, what would I do in that situation? If it's something I'm not going to use my axe, then I'm probably not interested. Things like this.
Yeah.
And that's how I try to work my way through it. There's sometimes you can't even help it. Sometimes it's like there's a child falling off a cliff. What do? I'm not going to use my axe to go save that child. You know, but at that
Mhm.
moment, that would literally just be, is my character good? Would they feel horrible and so forth? And of course, that character would jump, grab whatever needed to happen to go grab that child.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I think that it's one of the in my opinion that's one of the hardest things about role playing in D&D because most of my characters in some way are based on me just because I'm still early in my experience and I feel like I haven't had a lot of opportunities to really like stretch myself and I'm hoping that this campaign that we're in now, the Tony's campaign will actually like allow me to do that just because it's a longer campaign than I've been in before. So, but to me, I kind of do the same thing where I stop and I think, okay, here's what my instinct would be. What would Kira do in this situation? So I actually, it's part of the reason why I refer to her in third person when I'm not speaking as her because it helps me separate her thinking versus my thinking.
Yeah.
So I can say like, okay, in this situation, Kira would be doing this, and so I say Kira is doing this. Like Kira would be doing this. Kira would be standing at the edge of the, standing in the corner. She would be flipping her dagger. She would be whatever she would be doing. It might not be what I would be doing, but that's
Right.
what Kira would be doing. And so it's like a mental. That's a mental like trick I use to kind of keep the two separate in my head a little bit
Mm-hmm.
so that when there are decisions that have to be made, I can think more of like, okay, so Kira was doing this. She would be thinking about this in this situation. So this is what she's going to do. Um, and that's kind of, it's a little bit of a trick that I kind of use to keep it separate in my head and to think about it separately because I do think it takes a conscious like thought process of I mean, I'm sure there are some people that can get so immersed in a completely different character that they don't have to like flip that switch in their head as much. But for me, I do have to like really think, okay, this
Yeah.
is what my first instinct would be to do in this situation. Is that really what Kira would do? So
Okay.
that's how I approach it.
For me, I'm more immersion. So I guess, and I think it's the funniest thing because Bill, you actually said this the other day when I like made my little Hero Forge character of Morag, and I was like, "This is Morag," and you were like, "It looks like you," and I went, "I know," except I have two hands. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
but yeah, so I think what I do is I always tend to bring an element of myself into each character that I play, whether it be like a little part of my personality personally that I like. Like, I feel like Morag is clumsy. So, like me, she's kind of clumsy. Like, she's creative. She loves to, like, work with her hands. She's an artificer, but she doesn't necessarily always get it because she wasn't fully taught. She's pretty much self taught how to do all of this. So a lot of the things that she has, like the gun, for instance, from the last campaign, if I roll anything under a 5, it will explode.
Oh no.
Yeah,
That's
low
awesome.
rolls for me, like anything under a 5 will malfunction
Oh my god.
because yeah. So that's just something that like you guys don't know that this is out of character. You guys don't know this. But
So
Mm.
yeah,
inspiration every time
so
you're gonna use that.
yeah, it's one of those things. And I mean, that happens to me personally a lot. Like I'll make something or like you're tying your shoes and you lace it too far and then it like completely falls apart. That's me. Literally every time I lace up my shoes. There's always one. There's always one. And so bringing those little things into a character help me personally just in better understanding the character because it's kind of like I'm playing myself even though it's someone different because like I'm a very open person, whereas Morag is not. She has to be peeled back, and like you have to
Mhm.
get the information out of her in order to get to know anything. And
Yeah.
so it's just different. I just made my first male character, and I'm still on the fence of like, how am I going to do this? And I don't know.
That was that was actually going to be one of my questions for today for you guys is because again I've only been playing for a couple of years and I've only made female characters because that's how I identify and so I was going to
Same.
ask before you posted that male character, D, if you have ever or would ever consider playing a character of a different gender.
I've always wanted to, just for fun, but again, it kind of comes into the can I do it? Am I going to be comfortable with doing it for a long period of time? Because if we're playing this campaign, you know, I don't sound like a dude sometimes, 6 o'clock in the morning, sure. But like, I don't sound like a guy. So how am I going to make this character work for me while still making something new, being able to bring something new, and making him his own entity? So he's a 15-year-old boy, which I feel like is probably the closest thing to my natural voice. And maybe I can just like, maybe I can add a little bit of like a puberty voice crack or something every now and then, you know? But getting that, and I'm not going to do the voice because I have been working on it, and I want to talk about doing voices and accents and things during the stream. But being able to really pull it off, I am literally practicing every morning in the car, every time I drive alone, because I'm not gonna talk to my husband like that. That would be kind of weird. But you know, just doing little things like that. When I'm alone, I will talk to myself in those voices, in the accent, in whatever I want to try, because you're never gonna know how it's gonna sound, how you're going to feel with it until you do it. So, but yeah, no, I would. But it also kind of comes in with DMing, I guess, because you have to make male characters. You can't just have an all-female town. You can, but it makes gameplay a little weird.
Ideas for my campaign.
How would you feel about it, Bill?
Oh, as far as that goes, honestly, it doesn't change anything for me, because I've seen both men and women and non-binary and trans people all act the exact same way. I've seen the same characteristics all the way around.
Right.
The only things that change really is like bathroom habits, or maybe how they move, or how their body shape, and so forth. But otherwise, how you role play them could really just be the same exact way. I have seen some, you know, I've seen some really gruff guys, but I've also seen some really gruff women before too. You know, and I mean, it's funny because, you know, that guy I was just talking about, the guy I worked with, it was like very gruff. That's my mother, you know. So, I mean, it's that's just a matter of perspective, just a matter of I guess the only thing that could potentially change, and it doesn't have to either, is how you deal with the rest of the world, how you deal with NPCs, or how they deal with you, but that's not on you. But
yeah. But
otherwise,
how you
no.
react to that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't. Yeah, I guess that it sums it up. It doesn't really change anything.
True. Very true.
That's fair.
We do have a question in the chat. Do you think you could roleplay a character that is completely different from your personality? Yes.
I think that's one of the hardest things you could potentially do. It is something that I have thought about and how I would do it. And of course, your brain wants to, well, how can I turn this around? How can I trick it so that I'm still doing something I would do, something my personality would do, but in like the opposite fashion? Kind of like, think a villain that's truly believes what he or she is doing is the thing that's going to save everyone. Think like Thanos, right? In Thanos' mind, he is the savior of the universe, the absolute savior, and anyone who's going against him is completely a villain. And if there's a threat to that ideal, it doesn't matter who it is, it's for the greater good. In his mind, the greater good. It's his judgment of morality. And with that right there, he's a good guy. He really is. But he's also the ultimate villain because of that. But for me to play someone that would be so outright evil, that would be walking next to the cliff face and push a child over the edge because it sounded fun, I don't know if I could do that very easily. I could do it, but it would cause pain.
Right.
You know? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess
Yeah, that's it's interesting that you bring up Thanos because I'm in another campaign that is it's an interesting kind of concept, this other campaign that I'm in, because it's actually two different groups that are playing in the same world, and one group is part of this like rebellion against the status quo or whatever, and the other group is we I'm in the other group and it's we're calling ourselves the Dragon Minions because we basically are on the side of the dragons and the people in power and that stuff. And it was I specifically like when the idea was floated, I specifically chose that group because I wanted to play something that would be like quote unquote on the bad side, just to do that, to kind of get out of playing characters that are more like me. So I created this character who had, like you were saying with Thanos, a very clear justification and like reason for her to be in that world. And even though that justification kind of aligned with some thoughts that I have, like the way that I am playing her is going to be very different from me. And
Mhm.
so I did that purposely to try to do this because I haven't played a lot of characters, so it's an experiment for me, and I'm looking forward to exploring it a little bit more. But because the campaign just started, so I haven't gotten to do much yet. But I do think it's hard because again, it's the same idea of like making choices that are not what you yourself would do,
right.
and reacting to the world in a way that you yourself wouldn't react. So I think it can be really difficult. But I think, like you said, if for that character, if you have a justification for the way that they act the way that they do, that makes it easier to at least kind of logic your way through it, and it makes the role playing, I think, more difficult.
Yeah.
But if you
whatever's
have
written down.
that like logical kind of behind it, it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you
Yeah, it
saying?
really seems like whatever is written down on paper, that is your guideline. And if it's something that you're not comfortable with, here it is. You can do this with every character. This is what you're going to go by. All the bonds and traits and all the personality and such. It's all there. It makes perfect sense. What kind of, how
Mhm.
do they feel against humans? How do they feel against elves? These things are going to completely dictate how you react to things. It could also be that you decide that I'm not like everybody else. Maybe I love humans. But at the same time, you then it comes there always comes down to the paper is not going to actually cover something, and
Right.
it's those moments that you have to insert a piece of yourself that will fit into that scenario, and sometimes you have to do the opposite of what you yourself would do, and you have to tap into your dog. It's not necessarily comfortable ever.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
for me, that's kind of what I'm doing with this new character for Kaylee's campaign once she starts. Um, is I am literally trying to do something I've never done before. I am not incorporating any part of my personal self into it. I am trying to do something absolutely different. And it's hard. I will say that because I've never done it before. I've never like pushed myself to actually I I'm going to use this term loosely, try something different. Because I mean, every character you create is trying something different. Like I am not a half orc. My my jaw doesn't jet out like this because I don't have giant teeth, but am I still going to talk like this when I'm a half orc? Yeah, I am. Because it's it's what they would sound like. They have giant teeth coming out of their mouth. They're going to have a giant underbite. Um so for me, like this new character is going to be really difficult just in a realm of putting it together to be someone that is wholly not me. And I mean, I'm not saying like he's going to be evil or whatever, but just me as in like a normal person. Like I am trying to play someone completely different. Like he's
Normal is overrated.
being evil sucks. Ugh.
Sure.
But yeah, for me, I've never done anything like that. I've always kind of incorporated, you know, oh, she has long brown hair and it's kind of curly, like just different characteristics of myself into a character, but this is literally a dude. He's 15 and I am neither of those things. But I'm also I feel like I hide behind accents in D&D. And that's something I would like to touch base on. Like
You
accent versus voice versus playing as your normal
Okay.
self, but role playing as someone differently. Even just having your voice be the
Mhm.
same. But I'm trying to do more of a voice than an accent because I feel like I hide behind accents in D&D. Which I guess isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like if you can do it, I guess. But I'm trying to not do an accent this time, and it's hard.
Hmm.
I guess I've always just kind of correlated the two together, D&D and
Yeah.
doing an accent or a
I
voice or something.
I feel that. That's actually what I'm doing with Flynn right now. I have no accent. It's just me. It's my voice because I've never done a character that didn't have an accent or a voice.
Yep. I noticed.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
But you still change the quality of your voice and the way
Mhm.
that you speak. So it's always very clear when it's Bill speaking and when it's Flynn speaking, at least to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
And so
your voice
I
goes up a
appreciate
little
that.
bit for Flynn. It's a little bit
Yeah,
more
just a little
high
bit.
pitched. Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not notice this.
Yeah, you don't notice it, but you do it. It's kind of funny.
That's fun.
That you don't notice it. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
Yeah, well,
so.
it's kind of the Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, going to the accents thing, I was always really nervous to do accents because I like the idea of them, but I think I'm not good at them. And I had intended to do an accent. I had actually intended to do kind of a Scottish accent for Brina in our previous campaign. And then like everybody was Scottish. And I'm like, okay, that's not gonna work. I'm just gonna drop that and just do my own accent and just pitch her voice higher and change the way she speaks, like the quality of her voice rather than have an accent, because I just didn't want it to be like a sea of Scottish, uh, and that actually helped me not realize but think about the quality of the voice more than an accent. And then I'm kind of doing the opposite thing with Kira right now, is where I have an accent for her, but the like voice itself is still just me. It's just me with an accent. Um, so I think that you can have kind of different approaches, and like other characters that I like have like over on the side, I kind of did both, and that's kind of fun to play with as well because it's something that's a little new to me. So I think it's kind of it's there's so many different things you can do with your voice other than an accent that I think that that's some of the fun for me.
Uh, I'm not sure. What is a pra? What is Tony's question?
I
Is it
think he probably hit enter before he
Oh,
finished.
okay. It's an incomplete sentence. I got it. I was like, well, I'm gonna need you to explain what a pra means, because
Yeah.
that's not a word I've
Well,
ever heard
I
before.
see Becky and the
Approach.
Beast said accents intimidate me. I don't think I could do it, but I love when you all do it. So the way that I actually did the Cockney accent, because I've never spoken with it or anything like that, and that's kind of what I'm using for Kira. I looked up YouTube videos. There are a ton of YouTube videos on how to do accents, and you can, and a lot of those YouTube videos will say, you know, what kind of accent are you thinking of? Here's some people who have that accent, like famous people. Go look up videos of them speaking. So like I looked up like Jason Statham, um, and Adele. Adele actually has her natural speaking voice as a Cockney accent. And then Michael Caine also has like kind of
Michael Caine.
a Cockney-ish accent naturally. And then I
Yep.
also use his name as the trigger, and we've talked about this before off
Yes,
stream, but
triggers.
for
Good triggers.
an accent, a trigger phrase or name. So I go Michael Caine, and that gets me in the headspace of the Cockney accent, and it works for me. And then some of the other things, some of the videos that I watched specifically talked about when you're doing an accent, your mouth position. And so for a Cockney accent, they say you open the back of your mouth wider and you pull the front of your mouth forward, like you're sucking on a light bulb, like you have a light bulb in your mouth is the description that was used. And that helps you create some of the sounds, the vowel sounds in particular, about how to do at least the Cockney, British Cockney accent, low British, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So like that's why I like YouTube videos are a huge, or videos in general, whatever they are, or like different people on TikTok. Like if you want Scottish accents, there are some excellent people on TikTok to just watch that have nothing to do with D&D or doing accents. They're just from Scotland.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I watch a lot of videos, and then like Dee, you were saying, talking to yourself in the car. I drive a lot at my place of work, so I'm like driving in my stupid big truck, like talking to myself in a crazy accent because there's nobody in the car with me who's gonna know.
Yeah, you said trigger words for that is good
Mhm.
trigger words. For me, having that like phrase or a specific word or something to kind of get you into that accent that will always be the same for that accent is like key. So like for Scottish, I say no it's no, which is no it's not. But like if you're from Glasgow. So for me that always gets me into that. Also that's hilarious, my cocaine. I can't. That's got me rolling.
It is.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
My cocaine. I'm like, ah!
That's what I think of when I say it, and the combination of thinking it and saying it is like, okay, and now I'm in.
Yep. Yeah.
Banana.
Yeah. Tony, banana. So whenever I say banana, I automatically get into a Australian accent. I don't know why. I don't know why the word banana gets that, but banana. Do 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 do.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so for me,
well, you want to do Wisconsin? It's like, oh yeah, there.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
you know, eh?
Don't ya know?
Oh, yeah, that's what I do for that. Don't you know?
It.
Oh
but
yeah,
like having those specific phrases or key words that you can put. And I did this. I need you guys to know, like from a DM standpoint, which Tony, will go to your question in a second. That was seamless. Thank you. From a DM standpoint, at least for me, how I approach role playing for NPCs is I will literally write whatever my trigger phrase or trigger word is next to their name. So if I have a script written out for them, like in a scenario or in whatever where I want an NPC to be, I will literally write, like if they're Australian, I will write, "This is Matthew, banana." Because I will read that and say banana, okay, and then I'll immediately get into it. And you know, for Scottish, no is no, and go with it and everything else. So for me, at least, Bill's frozen. Oh, there he goes.
Oh, he's unfrozen for me now.
We're good. No, we're good. But yeah, for me, it's hard to keep up with NPCs, and I know Tony can. Tony can vouch for this because, like, when your characters find an NPC that they like, I'm not gonna say any names. It does get a little difficult to kind of just push them to the wayside when you're like, okay, well, if I could possibly get them into like that character standpoint, like, sure, they can be a reoccurring character. And it also kind of has to go along the same lines of if you have an NPC who is like a guiding NPC who is supposed to be there regularly throughout the campaign, or like a literal tour guide through the city or something, you know, you have to be able to keep up with them and how they sound, their voice, their everything, as well as the store clerk or the potion master or the random hobo you find on the street. Like, you have to keep up with all of them, and it is difficult to first off get them all where they need to be, and especially when you have to think of, like, on the fly about different NPCs and make them up, like the Stonewall family. So
we're never gonna let Tony forget that.
Never. We're never forgetting. Or was it Rockwall?
Ever.
Was it Rockwall or Stonewall? I think it was Stonewall. Rockwall?
Was it Rockwall? Wait, I have it written down.
I have it written down too. I think it's Rockwall. But yeah, just from at least from my perspective, I don't know how you deal with it, Bill.
You know what? I had like all these things lined up, and then as soon as there was like, and you, I was just like, oh crap, and my head just opened.
Yep.
But all right. So one of the things I found a while ago, there's three key points to this. First of all, on YouTube, there's a lady I highly recommend. I can't remember her name. I haven't actually looked her up for a couple of years, but she's blind. So therefore, she
I
just
know
uses
who
her.
you're talking about. Oh, poop.
She mastered accents,
Yes.
and she's amazing because she's like, I hear it.
That's
Trust me.
cool.
You can't tell me this is not the accent because it's all I do. I just listen. And she's
Mhm.
I highly recommend her. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. Maybe I'll find it. We can just like post it up or something. But
Yeah.
uh, one of the things I found is well, first of all, I tend to, I don't even know how I do it, but I tend to find um, key interviews with actors, and they just pop up on my feed sometimes. They just find videos randomly. They just come to me, and it's amazing. They always come to me at the right moments because I couldn't remember the actor's name. I actually had to look it up, but Peter Stormare. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a Swedish actor, and have you seen not Deep Impact, Armageddon?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, he was the crazy Russian guy up on the space station.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
The
I know who
Russian
that is.
Russian. he he's Swedish, and the funny thing is that they asked him on this interview, well, how do you do all the accents you do? He said, well, it's funny you say this because I go to many producers, I go to many directors, and they ask me if I can do this accent, and then they tell me to do it, and I do an accent. Is it the right one? No, no, not necessarily. It's an accent I just did on the spot, but they always tend to grab it and they think I did a good job, so I just go with it.
There you go. There you go.
And it's,
That's awesome.
yeah, exactly. And it's funny because then there were several times I remember watching him in movies. He's such an amazing actor, but it's just like, that's not really a German accent, but it really fits. And that also put in perspective the fact that just because someone's from Scotland doesn't mean they're going to have a perfect Scottish accent. And I've been
Yeah.
actually seeing some TikToks lately. There's a girl from Scotland. She's very angry. That's her like gig, you know. Um, she's from Scotland, and a lot of people have actually said, "Well, you don't sound Scottish." It's like, but I am. I'm from here. I live here. This is Scotland, you know. But no, she doesn't have the typical Scottish accent. She doesn't sound the same. Like I don't sound like I'm from New England per se. I do say some of the sayings, but I lived in Maine. I don't talk like this, you know.
Is that what people in Maine sound like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've been to
It's
Maine
like
once,
it.
and I don't think I spoke to anybody.
But it's one of those things, and people don't have to talk like everybody else, even though they're from that area.
Yep.
But the other big thing, like right now, I've been, of course, whenever I'm making a new character, I'm always instantly thinking, like, okay, how are they going to talk? Because I love doing the accents. I love getting into the character and doing that. And it's like this Minotaur Paladin. He's so going to have a Russian accent. I'm just thinking, you
More
know,
Russians.
I'm just thinking where the mouth would be and so forth. This is what it's going to sound like. You think you want to challenge me? Bring it on, that big ox. You know,
I love it.
I love it.
Yes.
I just picture
I
like a
love
Russian
it.
mouth.
Well,
You know,
that's really funny because I had another character that I was kind of trying to do a Spanish accent,
oh,
and I started doing it. I looked up some videos. It's much more difficult than any sort of variation on British, just because in with British anything that's based in English, it's all just about the the vowel sounds changing. Really, like the consonants themselves don't change, but Spanish is one of those that the consonants change. And they have a very particular, like the vowel sounds are pretty consistent word from word, and so it's a actually kind of a difficult accent once you start playing with it, especially if you're trying to do more Spain Spanish as opposed to Mexican and South American Spanish. There's a different feel to it, different sounds. But when I started doing the character, I got rolling the R's because that's like a thing I can kind of do. And it immediately turned to Russian. I'm like, how on earth? Why am I now doing a Russian accent? And I think it's because we had just watched Stranger Things, the most recent season, and like half of that took place in Russia.
Yep.
And so like half of the accents were Russian accents. And I think I flipped the R's and my brain just was like, and now you're in Russia for some reason.
Yeah.
So I ended up trying to bring it back. And this accent for that character ended up being this weird like amalgamation of like Russian and some Spanish and then like a little bit of German consonants as well. And I was like, you know what? Fantasy world, country accents aren't like absolute. If this character is going to end up sounding like a mishmash of accents, as long as it's consistently a mismatch, then I don't care. And that's kind of how I rolled with it, and it worked out. Or at least it worked out for me. I gave the character a voice and a sound that was distinct to that character.
Yep.
And it worked. So that's why I think like you can say you're bad. Like if somebody says they're bad at accents or they don't know how to do it, like just make it up. Like that actor said, like just do whatever you feels right in the moment for that character. And if it's close, it's close. And if it's not, it doesn't matter. There is no Russia in Faerun or Exandria or whatever, Star Heel, whatever world you're playing in. Like there's no Russia there, so their accents don't have to be exact.
Yep.
Well, and
very, very good.
That's another thing is like you don't have to do an accent. You don't have to do a voice. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to have a Minotaur Ranger or whatever sound like myself, as long as I was acting like a Minotaur, it would be fine. Like, you don't know what a Minotaur sounds like. You'd have a country accent for all you know. It doesn't matter. Like, as far as role-playing goes, it is your comfort. It's your comfort level. If you don't feel comfortable with doing a Scottish accent, if you're like, oh, it's kind of there, but it's not quite there yet, don't do it. You don't have to. If it's something that you're like, there's like a slight Scottish accent on this one, like some specific words are very whatever, and like as you learn, like if it's a secret of character and they start out like this and have a little bit of an accent, some words, are there, but then it starts to come out more and more as their character progresses, and then finally as you yourself feel comfortable, welcome in, Rembali. As you yourself feel more comfortable with that voice, you can bring more of it out and unlock more of your character to your comfort level. It's all about what you feel, how you feel about your character, your own voice, your own abilities, and just putting that into your character.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I think it's. I was just going to say real quick. I think it's more important for you to be comfortable playing that character than to have the perfect accent or any accent.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a lot of what people think role playing is accents and voices and things like that. And I'm like, it's not. It's really not. It's about your character and how you want to portray them.
Yep.
Sorry.
And a key thing that I've been watching and trying to pay attention to, especially with watching movies, actors, and such, and something our current DM is doing, and I thought it was amazing. I just love the way that she did it, especially with, like doing a tree, but just changing your tempo, changing how fast you talk. You don't have to change your accent. You don't have to change your voice. If you change how fast you talk, it can change the character completely.
Yep.
And she's playing she has an NPC that's a tree. His name is Pip. It's a tree with a hat. And yeah.
I love that.
So good.
And Pip is from the Feywild, so trees talk and move and such. They don't have to be Ents. But I just picture like Greybeard. I mean a Treebeard rather, Once I went that way. It was great. It seemed like I was going downhill.
Yes.
And just slow and such. And actually in that same campaign, I've actually gone through like 2 or 3 characters, but the first one that I made, his name was Monty, but it was spelled out Monty. and I saw a figurine at one point, not like not a D&D figure, but one of those ceramic ones that old people buy. Uh, and it was
Yeah.
a castle staircase going up, and you see picture like a barbarian like wielding an axe and such, carrying a girl over his shoulder, and it's I think it was portraying that he was rescuing the girl from the tower, and coming up the stairs is this great big orc warrior,
Oh.
and it's like the sign of trouble and so forth. But I like to look at things from a different perspective, and I instantly was thinking that actually that's the orc warrior's wife, and this guy thinks
She's
he's
being kidnapped.
yeah, but she's
Yeah.
actually being kidnapped. She's like,
I
let me down.
love that.
He's like, I'll save you. And then here comes Monty, and he's been out, and that's Gwendolyn. I was out there, and I was just picking some flowers for Gwendolyn. She loves the daisies. And then when I came back, I see you. Please put my wife down. I don't want to have to use my axe.
Yes. Yep. Ooh, I have a question.
Answer.
And I just brand me weird because it's gonna happen on long car rides. Do you guys talk to yourself like full conversation and flip between voices and accents and everything else, and how you would like play characters? Like, please tell me it's not just me.
Mhm.
No, no, of course I
Okay.
don't.
No.
Yes. No,
No.
I
I
don't do
mean,
that at all.
we're
That is not
also
me.
Yeah.
like
I feel attacked.
so I saw a thing I saw a thing a while ago that's basically like people come to D&D from like 3 different reasons. One is they read Lord of the Rings in high school and they never recovered. 2 is they are just pure chaos and they showed up and they bring snacks.
Yep.
But the third one, which is actually the first one in the original thing, is a frustrated theater kid. And I have a feeling that all 3 of us are on the frustrated theater kid side of things.
Bro, it's true. It's so true.
Yes.
It really
I feel like
Yes.
is.
all 3.
So
Yes.
I mean a little bit, yeah.
Yes.
But I actually have I have 2 dogs. Each of my dogs has their own voice, and especially when Jeff's not around, I will have full conversations with the dogs, with each other, and with me, and like that's
Yep.
just what happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes with some of my D&D characters because I'm practicing or whatever it is.
Oh,
So
100%.
yeah, if I'm by myself anywhere, I am definitely talking to myself, and there's usually multiple accents and voices involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Also,
I have
welcome in.
forever worked a long distance from home. The closest I ever worked was maybe 10 minutes from home, but that was once. Otherwise, it's always been a matter of 30 to 45 minutes. Right now, I'm an hour. At one point, it was an hour and a half. That's where I get my singing voice from. And also where I'm able to come up with these songs, because I have a long car ride. I'm just listening to this music, and D&D lyrics are popping in my head. I'm like, oh, yes, that's going on the playlist, and I start, and there's sometimes that I really try to practice these accents whenever I possibly can, because one of the big things is, and especially, I love that you have trigger words, and trigger words are very, very important, very, very important. But one of the key things with that is you tend to have, it's like learning a brand new language. When you're learning a brand new language, you have a very limited vocabulary.
Yes.
So the very best thing you can do is practice the words you don't hear very often, because all of a sudden you're going to be in a conversation someday, and you're going to be trying to figure out, you're going to be struggling with your accent to try and say what you want to say, because you don't know how it's supposed to sound.
Yeah.
And so I'm always, if I've got road rage, I'll just be yelling at them in a Russian accent, or things like this, or whatever accent I need to do with everything I'm saying. I'm practicing this way.
Yeah. No, I feel that.
Sometimes I actually think about what happened in the last session and what might happen in the next session, and practice like words or phrases or stuff like that that might come up in the next session. I did this more, I think, early on in this campaign with Kira than I do now. But I did it a lot when we were doing a lot of conversation early on, just to try to figure out how certain words would sound, because I feel like certain words are easy and certain words are hard, and sometimes they come out without any accent at all, and it's like, whatever. But I try to that's a thing that I've tried a few times with a couple different characters and things like that to try to get at least an idea of the sorts of words that I might be using or saying and things
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, and I think this is kind of funny. I'm sorry if I'm gonna say your name wrong. TDS Idea Machines. The angry goblin doesn't like getting cut off in traffic. That, honestly, the best way to learn how to do an angry voice is to try something new when you have road rage.
Yes.
I do that all the time, and I have found that I can make some weird noises with like words, like actually talking, like weird voices when I'm just road rage. Because I do. I mean, I'm sure you guys can understand. I have road rage, okay? It's part of me. It's
No.
who I am. I am road rage. So for me, and the weird noises. But yeah, it's something that helps me at least with like being angry and being okay with portraying anger in a character, because sometimes you have to, that's things you have to think about, the little intricacies about like how would this character react to this character, like, okay, Flynn and Morag. I still, as if you cannot tell, I still cannot figure out how Morag feels about Flynn. Because their character relationship is constantly changing. And so like they're kind of getting okay with each other, and it was like the little annoying pipsqueak at first to Morag, and so now it's not. Now it's more of a you're okay kind of situation, but
It's going exactly how I pictured it, honestly. And
it is not for me.
do you want me to tell you how Flynn actually looks at Morag?
Ooh, yes, out of character, I want to know. Tell me.
Older sister.
Oh.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Oh, no, I love
Doesn't that
that.
put it in perspective, though? It's like, I am so gonna pick on you
Oh no,
every
it
chance
really
I get.
does. It really does.
Somebody
That's
messes with you, they're going down.
okay. I fully understand now. And see, knowing that myself, Morag doesn't know that, but knowing that,
Yeah.
can help to progress everything and kind of do that. And I think it's also good to have those kind of conversations either out of character or in character with your DM, with the other characters. Like a session 0 is key to every campaign because that is where you learn your relationships with the other characters. If you don't have their accent finalized or a specific trait about them finalized, it can help get your character where they need to be as far as role playing them and fully being able to portray exactly what you want. And seeing all of that come together is really nice in a whoa, sorry, I had to burp. In a session 0. Okay. In a session 0, because if you don't have that, you're just kind of like going in absolutely blind. And I feel like that's not hello.
Hey,
I'll
be
Thank you
right
for the
back.
follow.
I need to
You'll be
take
right
care of
back.
something real quick. But I'll be right
Absolutely
there.
unacceptable.
Sorry.
But yeah, so for me at least, having that session 0, and I feel like I message Tony all the time, our current DM. I feel like I message him all the time asking like, is this okay? Can this be a part of my background? I had mentioned this 3 months ago about Morag, but now I'm actually going to bring it out. Or like my relationship with Duncan currently, which is an NPC that we are bringing along, which is, another one of those things that you kind of have to keep up with.
Yeah.
But being able to talk to him about that, because he is Duncan, so it's not really out of character. But doing that or having that conversation and being able to kind of solidify what you need, because playing up in the air is not really the way you want to go, because it makes you feel uncomfortable, which would then make your character feel uncomfortable, at least to me personally. But
Yeah, and I think having somebody to bounce ideas off of, and like Tony, well, Tony's my brother, so like we have
Right.
we have extra side conversations all the time. But like he was here visiting with his family last week, and we spent one night after the kids went to bed just like, I was like, okay, I have been thinking about my character and I have this issue and I need you to help me solve it because I can't make these two pieces fit. So he and I like talked through, and this is more like character kind of backstory creation than anything else, but we had this whole conversation about, okay, well, he gave me some perspective on the world that helped me kind of figure out how I was going to make these pieces fit and kind of solidify the timeline of how things happen. And having that like firmly in my head means, okay, now I know where Kira's really coming from when it comes to some of this stuff. And I think, like you said, having a session 0, because we had like more of a session 0 when we did that like world building like stream kind of,
Yeah.
not like after like we had a few campaign streams, and then we're like, oh, by the way, here's more details about the world.
Which I didn't get to come from
So
or go to because I was not here.
But you should watch it. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it because, okay, good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good information.
Yeah.
But like having that kind of solidifies, because the way that I use my background is like what influences the character's personality more. Having that stuff like firmly like, okay, so here's the things that she's really worried about, and here's the things that she really cares about, and here's why, and here's the place where she's coming from when it comes to some of these interactions with other people. I think having that conversation with your DM is really important. But also, I think for some of this stuff, like having conversations between players can be important too. Like what you and Bill were just talking about with your characters' relationships, because sometimes having that in your, even if your character doesn't know it, having that like perspective to come from is important. And then I think if anybody wants to make big decisions about their characters' relationships with other characters, it's important to have those conversations with the players beforehand, just to make sure that they're okay with that sort of major, I don't know, role-playing choice, if you want to call it that, I guess, because you don't want to make anybody uncomfortable by like deciding that your character hates another character, or is madly in love with another character. Like, you want to have those conversations with people ahead of time, so that it doesn't come completely out of left field, and they can, first of all, be okay with it, and second of all, know kind of at least what how their character would probably react to something like that.
Yeah. And that's another thing that kind of comes with world building, character building, and having a DM, at least like Tony. I think he has done this absolutely perfect, and he asked us the other day, and I don't think he needs to be worried at all. Him giving us maps, history, being able to tie your character actually into that world. If you choose, they could be from a distant land. They can be from wherever and have like come here for a specific plot point or whatever, but being able to have that actually tie into the world that you're playing in is so helpful, because it helps to solidify your role playing and your ability as a whole to be able to actually, further the campaign, further the immersion into what you're actually doing. I think that's really helpful, not just, for you to the DM for the lore and the world and everything, but also to everyone else. And I mean, I still have no idea where you guys are from. Like, if you're actually from like Starhill, or if you're from
I will give you a hint for Kira. There is a reason for that. Like, there's a very specific
She doesn't exist. She's a ghost. I knew it. I called it. I'm just kidding.
I mean, yeah,
I knew something was weird.
Like, And that was a particular choice. And I could tell you, if you were to ask her, if any of the characters at this point were to ask her, she would be vague and not answer.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't get a straight answer from
Well,
her.
I would be
like, at
vague
this
because
point.
I don't remember the
So.
name of the city that I said I was from. That's why I would be vague. It's written down. I just haven't looked at it in a while.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
you might
from,
find out where she was from, did her Thieves Guild stuff, but that's not where she's from.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, like that, some of that can be a very specific character choice.
Right.
And some of it, it could be just because we haven't had much opportunity to have some of those role-playing interactions. And that's actually something I kind of wanted to talk about, because a lot of our campaign up until maybe 2 sessions ago was really task focused, very much like, okay, we have these things we need to do. We need to figure out how to get them accomplished. And yeah, there's some role playing in there, but we haven't had a lot of solid opportunities for like conversations between characters without some sort of like, okay, but we got to get this task accomplished behind it, until we were doing the watches from, I think it was 2 sessions ago. And that's something that, as I think DMs, because I've never DM'd, so I don't know how people structure things, but that's something that I actually, as a player, really enjoy, having an opportunity, not necessarily with all of the characters in one place where everybody's talking, and you might not get a chance to have a sit down with a particular character and talk with them about whatever it is that they ask questions or whatnot. So having some of those, like, overnight camping, or you 2 people in the tavern when everyone else went to bed, or whatever it is,
Right.
opportunities like that to have some character interactions, I think are really valuable in a game, especially if you have players that are really interested in the role-playing aspect of it, to give them that opportunity to explore their character and explore their character's relationships with the other characters, and ask questions like, where are you from? Or,
Yeah.
hey, I noticed you don't use magic all that often, even though I know you have it. How come? Stuff
Okay.
like that.
I just want to side note right here, because I almost called Mon Jin. When you play too much D&D. Mother of Nerdlings brought up something important. Night watches and meals are a great role-playing opportunity. I am Morag, not me personally. Morag, I feel like, is leaning towards, and I don't know if Tony is still here, but I kind of hope he's not, because I want to talk to him about this. I personally feel like there is a connection between Duncan and Morag from like a past life, like early in life, like they knew each other and have just like since forgotten. Does anybody else feel that way? Because I feel that way, and I don't know why, and it's really weird.
I think some of it, because didn't you have like a really high persuasion roll with him like early on, so he trusted you like right away? And I think some of it is like because of that, but things like that happen completely by chance are opportunities to then maybe make some of that happen, or explore that. Like, I was thinking about that the end of the last stream. I'm like, this is more than you just met and almost killed each other a day ago.
Right, that's what I'm talking about, though. Like, I would not, Morag would not feel comfortable laying her head on someone's shoulder, but I was like, this feels necessary right now. And I mean, again, I guess that goes into like role playing and everything, but being able long lost siblings, no, she's an only child. Although I don't know, maybe no, but it's just one of those things that's like, my brain, as I went to bed after the last session, my brain automatically thought of like Anastasia and like the relationship between Anastasia and whatever Dimitri, and like their relationship to that. Like they knew each other, and then she finally remembered like who he was or whatever. But it was just one of those things I was like, oh, is that the situation? Like, what is Tony's plan for Duncan? Like, when I asked him, or when Morag asked him, where are you from? And he was like, I'm not ready to say that yet. And I'm just like,
Ooh.
Oh. Well, I
Yeah.
know for a fact that Tony has plans upon plans upon plans. I don't know what they are,
I
but
want
I
to
learned
know.
he and I were talking about Kira's backstory a little bit. And you remember the scene where we were in the alley and and Kira knocked over the trash can because the dice betrayed me again with
Yes.
my sneaky, and there were those two characters that were talking in Thieves' Cant, but as soon as they realized I understood Thieves' Cant, they switched to talking in Orcish, which I don't speak. Apparently, if I had, I would have heard some really interesting conversation that was relevant to my character. And I was like, oh, damn it.
What?
I'm like, how? Why? What?
Evil.
Man, okay.
So
See,
there's like other stuff brewing that like none of us
sneaky,
know anything about.
sneaky.
I can tell you that. He is super sneaky. And I also know that has he's got this whole campaign like we could be going on this for a year or more, I'm
Good.
sure. Like it's
Good.
really in depth and really like there's a lot of meat. And I know that because I know he likes to incorporate backstories when he's writing stories too. So I'm sure there's stuff that'll be coming from mine, and I'm sure there's stuff that'll be coming from Clancy's and from Morag's, and like I'm
Right.
sure that there's stuff like we could really be doing this for a long time, which I think is awesome. Like that's one of the things that I'm excited about because I've only done one shots and short campaigns up till this point. So I'm like, I want to get into a big, meaty, long campaign.
Yes.
Get it, like really get into a character, like because that's again something I haven't had much opportunity to do, and I'm really excited
Right.
about it.
See, my thing is, I want to get into a big, long, meaty campaign, but I actually want to finish it because I feel like that's the worst part about D&D is you never get to finish campaigns.
Yeah, that's never happened.
Yeah.
I have
Ever.
finished one campaign, like full campaign, not like a one shot or something like that, but like one full campaign I have actually completed.
The
And
only
it was my
campaign I
first.
completed, I introduced my character. I like everyone was like, all right, introduce your characters and such, and I did. I introduced my character, and that right there was the end of the campaign because they said, okay, new characters, never mind. Uh, they decided they want to do a chaotic evil campaign. It's like, okay, like I'm not really comfortable with chaotic evil, and I guess I embraced the not being comfortable. I made everybody else uncomfortable
Yeah.
by making a chaotic evil dwarf had been captured and had been shackled, and having his genitals actually shackled up, and that he had to chew his way out, and that's how he got out of prison.
Oh
And he kept,
God.
as soon as I said that, they're like, okay, it's done. Never mind.
I mean, chaotic evil right there. Let's nail on the head, man.
I thought so.
True.
It's funny. Now, I don't know if anybody's been picking up on this, but there's little character changes I've been trying to make with Flynn, and it's one of those things that's hard to portray, especially with not knowing his background. And there's pieces of the background that I'm not saying because I think Tony wants to do something with it.
Mm.
But the biggest thing is Flynn's hunting for stardom. That's the biggest thing. Stardom is the thing. Stardom. He wants to be the movie star, and that's one of his drives. It's just, yeah, I will be there. And then there's other things to it. It's like, especially with like the role play aspect, I look at, well, not me, Flynn looks like Morag, like his older sister. And then suddenly she's getting chummy with this other bard who is now kind of stepping on my turf here.
Oh.
I
He's already
understand. I love
older
this.
sister's getting chummy with this guy, but what about Ace? I like that guy. I don't like this guy.
Not that kind of chummy though.
Flynn doesn't see it that way.
Are you saying Morag is a hussy? I'm just kidding.
No. But actually, you could turn that around and just be like, are you saying Morag is easily manipulated? Because that's the thing. I'm just like, what is this guy doing? Does this guy need to disappear in the night?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if he's like making his moves or not. I don't know how the conversation went in the jail. I'm just seeing that you're close to him now, and I don't like it. Or Flynn doesn't like it, I should say. Getting into the character, I just like it's literally like one of those things. Putting on like a mech suit, you get into the character, and now I am the character. But especially with that right there, I don't know if anybody else remembers it, but I remember when I was a kid, I saw the episode like 3 or 4 times. I honestly don't remember if it was Warner Brothers or if it was Disney, but I think it was Disney. There's this old cartoon of this little owl, his little kid, and he's going to go to Hollywood and he's going to be famous. And that's what the whole episode's all about. And the entire episode is his travels to get to Hollywood to be famous. Along the way, people are just like, kid, you're never going to make it. And he's like, really? What's your name? And he writes down their name. And it's like, what are you writing down the name? What's that for? It's like, I'm making a list of names of people to hate when I'm famous. It just keeps doing the entire episode. And then finally makes it to Hollywood, doesn't make it. They're not interested. And he goes home with his tail between his legs, makes it home with this huge stack of paper, puts it on the counter. And I think it was his dad asked, what's that? Just a list of names.
Yeah.
But that's
That's
I'm
awesome.
kind of like the whole stardom thing that I'm like going for this, and like that's my goal. That's one of the things I'm actually picturing is that little owl. No.
Okay. I think I know which cartoon you're thinking about. And I think it was Warner Brothers.
I thought so.
Because I think it was
Yeah, it
Looney
sounds like
Tunes.
Warner Brothers thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a Warner Brothers thing.
But okay, so we did have a request in the chat to
Oh.
do some voices or accents of characters.
Oh no.
Comfort levels. On
Oh
the
God.
fly. Okay, so we had just some general ideas, or if you have like, I guess, past characters that you want to pull forward, give us a little bit of a description, and then we can try to portray, or better yet, we say like one person gets to choose what the next person does.
Oh God. That's terrifying.
Yes, it is. But it's a good kind of terrifying, I feel like.
I
So,
suppose.
okay,
It's good practice.
I'll go first. Bill, I would like you to portray a half-orc carpenter around age between 40 and 50. And they are unexpectedly weak in stature.
Weak in stature, carpenter, half orc. Okay, between 40 and 50. Basic like persona?
Yeah, just a day in the life.
Yeah, what kind of basic persona, like gruff, happy, go lucky? Just come up with something?
However you want to make it. That's your character description. Now you create. You roleplay.
Well, you see, I could definitely build that door for you, but the problem's gonna be I couldn't lift the boards. I'm gonna need you to assist me with practically everything, but I can tell you how to do it. It's just gonna be, yeah, I'm the manager. I hire people to help me out. I'm the know-how. I don't really do much myself. I know you wanted me to build the door for you. I'm sorry, Steve, but I can't do it. I'll have to have Jim Bob come over. Jim Bob's really good at doing it. He's not very smart, but I'll be his brains.
Beautiful. Also, I love that you started as, I can build that door for you. I cannot. I need Jim Bob.
I can't actually. I know
Nerve
how
damage.
to, but
Yeah. I can coach you through how to do the thing.
Yeah. I was thinking of doing that or doing with. Yeah, I'll build that floor for you. Get that board for me. Okay. Now take that nail.
There you go. Yeah, you're just walking them through the stages of building a door. It's educational. I love it. Beautiful.
All right. So, Christy. Let me see. Wait,
like
what
this
was
game.
what was some of the other Did you just come up with that suggestion yourself on the spot?
Oh yeah, no, I just made it up.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. Okay. Um, how about a pixie farmer who is a blueberry farmer, but is actually allergic to them?
A pixie blueberry farmer who's allergic to blueberries. Well, the first thing I think of is a pixie. A pixie would have a pretty high pitched voice, and it would probably be really hard to hear because they're small. And she probably doesn't do a lot of the picking herself because of her allergies, and she's probably a little bit maybe hypochondriac, one of those people that carries like an EpiPen and Advil and all the medications they might need in a little bag. So she's probably got pockets, lots of pockets everywhere, and is a little bit nervous a lot of the time and kind of answer or says everything with a question. Is kind of what I'm getting from this voice. Not really sure why, but I think she would be asking for help a lot because she's small and doesn't want to, maybe is a little bit of a germaphobe and is afraid that she might find a new allergy, and so I ask for help a lot, and would you mind, I mean, I think we should pick that stuff up and maybe loot that body, but I'm afraid that I don't want to touch it just in case, you never know. So if you find anything that might be useful, I'd really appreciate it. I can put it in one of my pockets here, and we can go see if it's valuable.
I'm
There you
imagining that
go.
was beautiful. I'm imagining
That's
like
awesome.
you rolling to loot the body and being like, "Hey, can you get that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Picture the two together, it would not work out well. I'm
No.
gonna need to pick up that board over there. It's like, I couldn't lift the pen.
You really
Yeah.
don't think I can do that? What if I get a splinter?
I love it.
Awesome.
That was perfect. I love it. Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh. All right. I saw some ideas in chat, so I'm rolling back
Yeah,
here.
there
I'm
were
gonna
some. I
pick one
couldn't
of those
find
for
them
you,
though.
D.
I saw like orc and carpenter, so I just put them
Uh,
together. I
yeah,
don't know if
that
they
works.
were. Oh, it was elf carpenter, orc roofer.
It was Elf Carpenter.
Yeah.
Okay, what about a oh, I see a gnome barber here. So let's say you have a gnome barber
God.
who became a barber because they heard the word barbershop quartet and they always wanted to sing, so they thought they had to be a barber to be in a barbershop quartet.
So I'm a bard barber.
A bard barber.
A
Yes.
bard barber. A barber to the bards.
Oh God. That's a very powerful character.
It is honestly like I
Potentially, yeah.
All the bards have to look amazing. That is wow.
Yeah, and you know,
Hello.
maybe they don't have a lot of idea of what a barbershop quartet is per
Right?
se.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Thebes, and I am a barber to the barbs. Bards. I'm not very good with words, but I think in my new barbershop quartet, in this here barbershop, where I cut everyone's hair, but mostly bards, this is exactly where I will find my stardom. You see, there's a way with scissors that you can get around, and there's a specific rhythm that you have to use as well. If you want to know who has rhythm, it is me. Thebes. It's a name you should remember. Barber to the bards.
Oh my God. I can picture this freaking
I love it. It's
There
so
you go.
good.
name you can remember. That's awesome. That was absolutely delightful.
Thank you.
That
You
was
ever
good. That
find
was good.
when you make a character that sometimes once in a while I'll create a character like especially on Valheim. I've been making characters on there, and I just roll with those, and I find it I end up entertaining myself just as much as everyone else. But I found that these characters I can just roll with it, and I'm being this character. I'm thinking of what they would say, and the words are just flowing. I'm not thinking about the words before I say them, and half the time I have to stop because I'm laughing at what I just heard myself say.
Yup.
And it's
Yep.
like
Yep.
Old Man Whiffler or Whiffles rather, or Ricky. Oh my God, freaking Ricky! And I've even done. I just did
Freaking
those voices
Ricky.
on that other game I was just streaming the other day, and it's just I could just continue going with it and going and going. It's never ending.
Yeah.
And I love being able to come up with that voice. It's difficult, and a lot of times the voice actually made the character for me. That's one of the
Mhm.
times it did the opposite. But that's actually, come to think of it, that is interesting because both of them I actually did the voice and then it made the character, and that is what actually both of them I can just flow, and the voice just created the words. They're just there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm. And I
Yeah.
think that sometimes is a way that you can kind of backwards yourself into a character is thinking
Yeah.
about what they sound like, or if you hear a voice or an accent that you really like, or you think is interesting, or you are talking to yourself in your car one day and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder what that character would actually look like, and what would they be, what would they do,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of a way to kind of come up with new characters and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. But yeah, if you guys have in the chat, any viewers watching right now, if you have any other questions about role playing, or if you are new to D&D and you have a specific character that you would like us to, I don't know, talk about or hear how we would do, uh, you only decided young or old? What? I
What?
don't understand.
Mhm.
Either.
I missed
I
that one.
No.
I mean,
think Ricky has
Oh, for the Valheim.
Yeah, I
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
it's like, to Ricky, hey, what's going on, everybody? Nice to meet you. I just went down to the place. I went down there. I just found a little raft at the shore, and I got on board the raft, and then I saw a fish. The fish was great. Fish was just kind of swimming around and had all kinds of green scales on it and everything. And I was thinking about the green scales. I was thinking maybe I should get some grass. Grass would be great. I could put that around my house and stuff, and maybe get some flowers and everything. And I haven't got my wife any flowers in a long time. I don't have a wife. What am I saying? I need to get a wife. A wife would be great.
A wife to get flowers for.
That's awesome.
Bro, Idea
I
Machines
actually have
just said.
something.
Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say they said that they came up with their warlock that way. It's like Mark Hamill's Joker with more ups and downs and no lips.
Ooh,
How does
Oh,
that
that's
even
awesome.
work? That sounds amazing. I would love to
okay.
hear that. I
Yeah, no kidding.
I personally have lips, so I don't know that I could portray that very well. Uh
Just smile constantly, and that, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd
Yeah.
have to think. I'd have to practice with that one, I think, to come up with something good.
Yeah, that'd be really difficult. That'd be amazing though. I
Yeah, it
love
would.
that.
Can I please do this? Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Please. How
that
do you
would be
say
fun.
peas?
I
Peas.
Cheese.
Basically, at that point, yeah. Sorry, Christy, what were you saying?
yeah, pretty much.
Maybe
Oh,
they have
I
a
was just gonna say I had a topic that we hadn't really talked much about, but that I know that comes up a lot when people talk about role playing, and that's the idea of improv and how D&D is kind of like improv in a way. And I know people hear improv and they get really, they think of like whose line is it anyway and stuff like that. They get really intimidated. But the whole idea of what the improv concept of yes and means, and how, because we've talked a lot about how to figure out what a character is, and I think role playing is like figuring out how you play your character, but also I think a lot of that is that interaction with other characters and how you have a conversation with another character, and how the way that improv plays into stuff like that, because you don't know what they're going to say, and so you don't know what your response is going to be until you hear what they say. And the idea of yes and what that means is that you listen to what they say and then you expand upon it. So instead of just like shutting down the conversation and stopping everything there with like a simple answer,
Mm-hmm.
where are you from? Not here. Like that kind of ends that conversation. as opposed to saying, oh, I'm not, I'm from here, there, everywhere, nowhere. What about you? Like asking a question in return is a way to do yes and. But the idea of yes and is like you're taking what that person is giving and then expanding upon it.
Right.
Either, if you want to by telling what you're, more about your character, that's great, or talking about something completely different, changing the subject if your character doesn't want to talk about that subject. Like that sort of idea, I think, is something that can be really scary for people that are just getting into it.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things that I think takes practice. Um, and so the more that you do it, the better you get at it. And the more ideas you have about how to do that with your character. So I just wonder if you guys had any, I don't know, thoughts about that, or kind of how you approach that idea of expanding upon something in a conversation.
Yeah, I think
I think
yes
that worked.
and
Yeah,
oh,
that was said perfectly.
mm,
I don't even know what to say to that. That was just
yeah,
yeah.
it was pretty perfect. I will say it was brought up also the useful yes but as the DM. It can also be used in regular, party gameplay. Yes, but and yes and can be used simultaneously because you have to think about what your DM has said before, and you can still expand upon that with yes but because you're
Mhm.
also tying it into your character, which I mean, personally I do all the time, but I don't know if that's just because
Yeah.
like I've DM'd, I've played as a character, so I just kind of do both. I try not to, but bringing kind of both aspects together when you can elaborate and really elaborate, so like oh, I guess it wasn't really an explanation because when I asked Duncan like where are you from and he said I don't know that I'm ready to say that yet, I didn't actually respond with words. I responded with an action and I said Morag,
Mhm.
lays her hand upon his shoulder and lays her head on, and that was her response. So you're still
Mhm.
elaborating on yes and. I didn't push it farther. I could have, but I chose not to because it felt like it was wrong in that moment. And so I could have said, okay, well, how did you get here? How did you do this? How did you come to be a part of the Dragon's Claw? And, all of this, which probably need to actually ask because I haven't done that. Should probably do that. But just the little questions like that. And I feel like even just responding and elaborating with action, that you have to explain is still a way to play off yes and yes but to be able to
Mhm.
I don't know, just grow as a character personally, like on a personal
Mhm.
level.
Well,
But yeah.
yeah, I think that's an important point that the yes and doesn't always have to be more words. It
Yep.
can be more action, and I think it can be just as important to describe what your character is doing or how they would physically react um, to that whatever's going on, as it is to have your character say something. Like an action can be a yes and or a yes but. I think yes and yes but are kind of two aspects of the same thing because
Right.
there's still the yes and then there's still more, and that's the whole idea of improv, is just making sure that the ball keeps rolling and that you're allowing people to other people that you're role playing with to build upon what you've done and that you build upon what they've done in whatever is going on. It can be character background, it can be just what's going on in the moment, it can be asking more questions of a shopkeep, like, hey, do you have anything on clearance or sale? Yes, actually, I have these 12 mystery potions. And that's like a whole, opens a whole can of worms.
Uh-huh.
um, and things like that, like asking questions and then and just allowing people to build and elaborate on whatever's going on in whatever it is, and that whether that person is the DM or another player. I think that aspect of improv is something that again, like I said, people I think get a little intimidated by when it comes to D&D.
Yeah. Huh.
And
And
I
that's
know that, especially when I first started, one of the biggest things that I ran into is I did not know what to do. And something because of that, every time that I DM, I tend to create a lifeline of some sort. And it may be that the characters never want to use it, and that's perfectly fine. But I'd like it to be there for them in case of something. And it's this last the very last campaign I did, I had created this dark world that someone cast this spell, used a special weapon, and it almost blew up the sun, but just in a magical fashion. They're just working. The entire premise of the campaign is to restore the sun. But then they also have to decide on whether or not they want to destroy the sun, because here it is. It's been like 200 years later, or 1,000 years later, whatever, and mushrooms have taken over the forest. For all basically died off. The only trees that are still left live off the luminescence from the mushrooms. And there's mushroom
That's
people and
really cool.
hive mind. Oh yeah,
hmm.
and hive mind mushroom and everything. And of course, if they restore the sun, all of this is going to die. So then they have to make that choice themselves. But
Oh.
um, I ended up Kaylee was happened to be walking over, and she was helping this wagon try to get to this next town, and she asked a question just out loud, and nobody answered anything. So I just, oh, perfect, and I had a little voice come from the forest. No, I don't know. She's like, what was that? Wasn't me. Doing this stuff and everything. It was a little mushroom, and then she walked over and she's like, "Are you talking to me?" No. And doing this stuff and everything. And it became a little hive mind mushroom. And from there, it became a thing that they could use that. They could talk to that mushroom, because everywhere they went, they were near a forest, they could talk to that mushroom. And it wasn't necessarily that mushroom, it was another mushroom that's connected to the same hive mind. And so as they're going through and being like, oh, that guy just ran off in the woods, where is he? Oh, he's over here. you know like, where
That's
do we go
awesome.
next? You should go left. you know but I think
Huh.
it's super helpful. Also, I wanted to point out that I'm going to swap from the camera to my phone because I need to get ready for work.
You're good.
You're good.
I feel like we're actually at a pretty good stopping point. I could be wrong. I don't know. If you guys want to keep going, we can. I know you said that you had needed to go around 1:30, and we are past that point. Uh, but I mean, there can always be a part 2 where we elaborate and maybe have more examples of characters we've created to talk about, talk on, elaborate on. If again you guys have any questions or specific characters you would like us to portray that maybe you have questions about that you've created and maybe need some help on, we're always here. This stream is not just for campaign. We also do educational Dungeons and Dragons, lore building, world building, character building, role play, all of the above. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on Twitter or yeah. So, but I feel like we can probably leave it here, at least for today. We will be live again on Tuesday with our regular campaign. It'll be session 11, which is kind of wild, honestly. But yeah, so
Very
stop
exciting.
by. It is 8:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Central that we start, and we will see you all then. But I feel like yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at signing
I
off.
think we covered a lot of the major stuff
did.
that I was thinking about.
We
so.
did. But again, if you guys have any other questions or anything, reach out to us. Our Twitter is at the bottom of the page, Reality20. And we will see you all on Tuesday. All right. Farewell.